President Trump has been withering about people who he endorsed or appointed becoming his opponents. And yet when it comes to Haley, he seems less concerned.
Would he ever pick Nikki Haley to VP? Would he ever do that?
Crazier things have happened. I don't know. I would never say never with Donald J. Trump.
Ron DeSantis' presidential campaign is flailing to say the least, and he is desperately trying to remain relevant, especially as Nikki Haley surges in the polls. Now, it seems their latest strategy over at the DeSantis campaign is to basically lump Nikki Haley together with Donald Trump to reduce their appeal to voters. Seems like a weird tactic, so I'll give you some examples of what the DeSantis campaign is doing specifically, and we'll discuss whether we think it's gonna work. So first off, the campaign launched a faux Trump-Haley 2024 website featuring the slogan, "Make the establishment great again." So
I see what he did there.
Matega? Okay, so this is all fake, obviously, and if you look at that, it just says Nikki Haley isn't the conservative she says she is. She is supportive of every liberal cause under the sun.
Then why would Trump choose her?
Listen, what Republican voters find unappealing about Nikki Haley is that they see her correctly as a neocon, a representative of the old guard of the Republican Party. So saying that she is supportive of liberal causes, I don't think is gonna work because she clearly isn't supportive of liberal causes. She's supportive of interventions abroad. She's supportive of wars that neocons are typically very in favor of and hawkish on. So like, I would touch on those issues instead of just making things up about how she allegedly supports liberals. It also lists a series of comments made by Haley and other politicians that DeSantis's campaign says shows she doesn't actually want to be president, which is also ridiculous. So here's what they write on the website. For years, Nikki Haley has wanted to be Donald Trump's vice president, and now she is using her 2024 candidacy to finally make her VP dream a reality by following the lead of the former president as they've combined to spend over $30 million against Ron DeSantis, all while she refuses to attack Trump. But Ronnie, until very recently, you were terrified about attacking Trump.
100%.
Now, originally, Nikki Haley was also terrified and honestly continues to be terrified of attacking Trump. In fact, remember this moment?
What specific policy areas would you say part with Donald Trump?
What I am saying is I don't kick sideways, I'm kicking forward. Joe Biden is the president. He's the one I'm running against. And what I'm saying is you don't have to be 80 years old to be president.
So let's touch base with John. Let's see how John is feeling about this new effort by the DeSantis campaign.
So DeSantis is like the worst, but I think some of what they're saying there kind of makes sense.
Okay.
Look, I think Nikki Haley would be perfectly happy to beat Donald Trump and become the nominee. But I think making the case that someone could be running for president without really having a hope of winning and doing it for other reasons, I think needs to be said more. And it's not just true of Nikki Haley. Ramaswamy deserves, I think, a part of that conversation.
He doesn't even register though, so that's why like no one's paying attention.
Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah.
The idea though that she's like spending all this money to make Ron DeSantis hurt, but not attack Trump, I think it's funny considering the tens of millions of dollars that Ron DeSantis has spent not attacking Trump and only hurting himself. It seems like he's just as guilty of that. But the Trump-Nikki Haley thing, look, I don't know that I believe that he will end up choosing Nikki Haley, but earlier this week on the Damage Report, I think I made the case pretty well that a backroom deal with Nikki Haley to absorb as much of the non-Trump vote as possible, that she then drops out after Super Tuesday and becomes his VP, clinches the nomination for him. 100%.
Dude, I made a similar argument on the show.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because there was polling that showed how handily Nikki Haley would beat Biden if it was a one-on-one matchup between those two, right? And remember, the election really comes down to independent voters, many of whom are turned off by Donald Trump, but especially in terms of the right-leaning independent voters, they seem to like Nikki Haley.
They think she's more reasonable.
So if Trump chose Nikki Haley as his running mate, I actually think that it would increase his chances of beating Biden in the general.
Yeah, and look, I know that the idea of him having some sort of attack dog, Carrie Lake or Marjorie Greene or something, makes sense, but he doesn't like being upstaged.
He doesn't.
He didn't choose an attack dog the first time. He chose someone who will appeal to more old school Republicans, not like try to steal the spotlight from him. Nikki Haley, I think, is a good version of that. And look, some people might say, well, why would she be his VP? She's attacking him now. First of all, she's not really attacking him, and she already served under Donald Trump once. And she could do this deal thinking, like, those filet-o fish are gonna catch up to him someday, and wouldn't I like to step over him with my high heels and become president?
Well, that's interesting. I think, yeah, I don't know if she's made that calculation. What I do know is that the super PACs representing both Donald Trump and Nikki Haley have put out dueling attack ads this week. Let's start off with the one coming from Nikki Haley's camp.
Of all the Republicans running for president, why is Donald Trump only attacking Nikki Haley? Because Trump knows Haley's the only one who can beat him. As governor, Nikki Haley cut taxes for small businesses by 40%. And now she's pledging to eliminate the federal gas tax. Want an 80-year-old name from the past or a new generation of conservative leadership?
Neither? All right, so that was an attack ad.
What else you got?
All right, and Trump's super PAC also came out with their attack ad against Nikki Haley. The MAGA Inc. ad released Tuesday criticized Haley for walking back a 2013 South Carolina gubernatorial promise to not raise the gas tax. Haley said Tuesday that the ad means Trump is getting nervous about her.
It was a pretty dishonest attack against her.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's an election and they're all dishonest about each other with some spots where they're actually telling the truth. But look, DeSantis is right, however, that Trump and Haley are coming after him hard. Okay, so let's get into that. They're doing it by basically mocking his embarrassingly bad campaign, which is getting increasingly embarrassing. A Trump campaign spokesperson, for instance, had a hilarious reaction to DeSantis's fake campaign website saying, holy, a word I can't say, but synonym is crap. Holy crap, the DeSanctis campaign is really staffed by dumbasses.
He said DeSanctis.
I know.
Embarrassing.
In response to DeSantis's website, a Haley spokesperson told ABC on Tuesday, quote, phony Ron DeSantis has spent 10 times more money attacking Nikki Haley than Donald Trump. He'll say anything to try to salvage his sinking ship of a campaign. Nikki has been very clear from day one. She doesn't play for second, although she's very likely gonna come in second.
Yeah.
Ron is trying to play for fourth in New Hampshire. And her PAC also released this brutal ad.
In a world of chaos, the last thing America needs is another dumpster fire.
Support for Ron DeSantis plummeting.
Republican voters are just not that into DeSantis. Ron DeSantis consistently trails.
His campaign has been floundering basically since he announced.
DeSantis getting a lot of bad campaign news this week.
I think the story of DeSantis is quickly coming to an end right here.
SFA Fund Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Look, credit where credit is due. I thought that was a great ad. Simple, right to the point, brutal.
Yeah, I think she has a point. I think he kind of has a point too, that if she's really serious about not playing for second, why isn't she explicitly attacking Trump more? I mean, she's like attacking him by attacking Biden for things that apply to Trump too.
Yep.
That's the closest she comes.
So it's going to get to a point where Trump is going to direct his ire toward Nikki Haley. And the question is, how will she respond? Look, if I had to bet money on it, I really don't think she's going to close in on him to the point where she would win the nomination. Even in New Hampshire, where they're touting how she's surging in the polls, Trump still has a massive lead. Let's keep it real. And then if you look at the Real Clear Politics average of polls, you'll see that Trump has a massive lead, 64.8 to DeSantis's 11.1 and Haley's 10.9.
That's only like a 50-point lead.
Just a 50-point lead, so. Not looking good for either DeSantis or Haley. We'll see how it plays out.
If you enjoyed this video, that's because of our members. They make us independent, they make us strong, and they make us honest. Become a member today by hitting the join button below.